There's a time in every gamer's life when they have the urge to throw their controller at their TV and walk away forever. This is usually because of an overpowered boss fight that leaves us in broken down, tearful, blubbering messes. Difficult boss fights aren't that surprising. After all, why call it a boss fight if it's easy? But the villains on this list really go above and beyond what should be expected from a final fight. So, take a look at these incredibly difficult boss fights from over the years, and let us know in the comments if you agree with their difficulty level.
Let's go!
He may be called the Nameless King in Dark Souls 3, but I have another name for this guy.
This mother...
This massively overpowered boss is the bane of everyone's existence, and even though he's tough, it might be the game mechanics that make this boss even harder. According to the game, the Nameless King was a dragon-slaying god of war before he sacrificed everything to ally himself with the ancient dragons. That would be kind of poetic if I didn't hate this boss's guts. Basically, this fight is split up into two sections. First, you have to fight the dragon, and you have to stay up close to it so it doesn't take flight and completely wreck you. But you're also dealing with an odd piece of camera work while fighting the beast, and that does nothing to help you overcome an already powerful boss. And then, after you're done there, you have to take on the Nameless King yourself, and you'll be frustrated by his super fast and super destructive abilities. You really have to memorize his attacks and his timing, but that's hard because his moves are sometimes very delayed, resulting in you rolling too early and meeting a quick demise. It's a good thing this boss fight was optional. In the DLC for Bloodborne, titled The Old Hunters, players will encounter a boss that will test and terrify them on every single level. His name is the Orphan of Kos, and in a series known for its gross-out creatures, Orphan of Kos might take the top prize for the most gag-inducing. The first time you encounter this boss, it ignores you and spends its time staring at the moon. But once you get close to it, the battle begins and you'll be bombarded with fast, deadly attacks that are usually followed by a haunting, horrifying scream that you'll probably hear in your nightmares tonight. This battle is particularly tough because the Orphan of Kos has a variety of close and wide attacks, which means you're not safe anywhere. Though if you want to beat this thing, it's best if you stick to his left side and wait for your chance to strike. You'll have two phases you have to go through to come out victorious in this fight. And just remember to always be patient. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is a classic 1987 fighting game that all leads up to one thing: the epic fight with Mike Tyson. But even getting to this final fight is no easy task, and when you do, you'll be surprised at how hopeless it looks to start with. The first minute and 30 seconds of the first round, Tyson will come at you hard with instant KO punches, so you always have to be on your toes ready to react to whatever he's doing. So once you power through that first bout of uppercuts, then you can focus on bringing Tyson down. Kingdom Hearts is a fan-favorite franchise because of its great blend of the Final Fantasy franchise with classic Disney characters. And, for the most part, the Final Fantasy characters are nice additions to the overall gameplay. The one exception? The dreaded Sephiroth. How bad is this guy? Well, he has his own theme song. That tells you he means serious business. I would argue he's harder to take down in Kingdom Hearts than in his original series. And anyone who encounters him better be ready for a serious fight. In the first game, make sure you're as high a level as possible, or else the fight will be over before it's even begun. Seriously, if you're under level 70, don't even bother. And even if you're the highest you can possibly be, you still need to prepare yourself because it takes a serious level of patience and timing to slowly bring the Mega Boss's health down. And if that wasn't enough, Sephiroth shows up in the second game too. It might be even harder than before. Both times you fight him, you'll have to work your way through 3 different phases, and each one is harder than the last. But stick with it. Maybe you'll beat him. Eventually. Possibly? Destiny quickly rose to the top of popularity when it was first released, and players spent countless hours battling unique foes and villains. the toughest fight was definitely Scolus, the final boss of the game's second expansion, House of Wolves. Due to Scolus and his minions' weapons and modifiers, it made the fight basically impossible to win. It got to the point where the game developers saw all their players utterly broken and frustrated with this difficult task, and had to step in. They removed some of the more ridiculous modifications and tampered with Scolus's health, which made the whole thing much easier. And when I say easier, I mean it still takes a lot of skill and training to take Scolus down. But just now, you probably won't cry while trying to do it. We should have guessed Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance was going to be tough to beat. The word strong is in his name. But it's actually surprising how much a normal senator can put up a fight against an advanced cyborg. And up until this point, the bosses for this game weren't as hard as this, which makes this sudden surge of difficulty a little overwhelming at first. The Senator combined himself with nanotechnology that makes him a true force to be reckoned with. His attacks are powerful, and if you're not paying attention, you'll lose very quickly. The key with Armstrong is to keep dodging his attacks and attack quickly when you have an opening. The first part of the battle may require a few tries, but once you get the timing down, you'll be able to bring this villain down.
Deep inside, we're kindred spirits.
I wish I could throw Emerald Weapon from Final Fantasy VII into the ocean so I never have to see it again. But that wouldn't work, because the optional super boss loves the bottom of the ocean. That's where you find him in the Final Fantasy Classic, and right off the bat, the game mechanics work against you. If you've not obtained the underwater materia before fighting this big green underwater giant, then you only have 20 minutes to fight him before it's lights out for you and your team. And even if the time crunch didn't make things more difficult, maybe Emerald Weapon's health will make you afraid. He has 1 million HP, which is enough to make a grown man weep.
This is what I'm talking about. I'm a dead man. Oh.
So, you're facing a villain who has an unearthly amount of health, while a timer ticks you down until your demise. Anything else? Oh yeah, he also has attacks that can wipe you and your team out instantly if you're not careful. You've been warned.
Oh, God, give me the strength to get through this.
Mega Man is another one of those classic old-school video games that had a ridiculously difficult boss at the end with the fight against the Yellow Devil. Now we can be reasonable here. Yellow Devil isn't the hardest boss of all time, but it certainly provided a huge challenge in the game itself. It's definitely the hardest part of the original game because its gameplay mechanics are different from anything you saw earlier in the game. Basically, you're trapped in a room with this big, demented Pac-Man-like monster who spends his time breaking apart into pieces and throwing himself at you. To the untrained eye, these come at you in such a fast way that you can't predict them. But anyone with experience can tell you there's a pattern in his attacks that you can memorize. Once you do that and have the timing down perfectly, it's all about survival, as you slowly wait for the opportunity to attack. And then bam, you come out victorious. Cthun is another one of those video game bosses with an incredible story. He was added to World of Warcraft in 2006 and was considered to be unbeatable. He would swallow players and digest them. He shot green eye beams that would wipe you out instantly, and his massive tentacles could swipe and destroy huge raid groups. Of course, someone finally realized that Cthun was way too hard to beat, so they made him less powerful in a patch of the game. It wasn't long before guilds started taking him down with a bit more ease. He's still a hard boss, but it's nothing compared to when Cthun was first introduced. Dark Souls is a franchise that has one of the toughest reputations around, and I think you could argue that started with Ornstein and Smough. Two powerful foes you have to fight at the same time. It's almost a little ridiculous. By themselves, these two would be a serious challenge, but you pair them up and you have yourself talking to a psychiatrist over the next 5 years about how you drove yourself insane trying to beat these guys.
Who gives a Get a life!
Ornstein is incredibly quick and agile, never giving you a chance to rest and forcing you to be on the defensive. But if that wasn't enough, you have Smough, who's slower, but also incredibly powerful, so you want to avoid his attacks at all costs. And let's say you go in with the strategy of damaging them both equally as you take your time with attacking, but that's a big mistake. As soon as you beat one of them, the other one regains their health and takes on an even stronger form, which at that point you'd be forgiven if you wanted to put your head in your hands and start screaming. No judgments here. But if you're looking for a strategy of which one to take down first, your best bet is probably Ornstein, since Smough in his second phase is still slow. What's been your hardest boss fight ever? Are there others you would have put on the list? Let us know in the comments below and be sure to hit that subscribe button for more awesome gaming content like this. Thanks for watching The Gamer. Now, take a deep breath and try that boss fight again. You got this.